Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Cheta Wanze.
So, Cheta, you've been having the time of your life. We've first of all, I think before we start, we need to apologize to our listeners for not having not recorded, being able to record episodes for more than a week now, and it is due to no fault of ours. Cheta, to be fair, had wanted to do something, but he's been, I won't say globe trotting, I'll say Africa trotting. So I'll leave it to you, Cheta. Why have we not been able to record something?
Because our producer insists on using one particular software to record, and I think that we can just use this. I think there's another one that works for the internet connection that is available in quite a few African countries, but the producer overruled me, and I'm an obedient boy, so I left it at that. We did try to record while I was in Senegal, but it's the recording. So basically, the software that we use to record separate tracks. So while Unzukwe's track was recording, he was hearing me, but my track was not recording. So by the time we finished and the producer tried to put everything together, you would be hearing Unzukwe speaking, but you won't be hearing me speaking. So right now I'm back in Nigeria. We tend to have better internet here than we have in some other places. I've been in 5 African countries over the last 2 weeks. So it's work that has carried me around. So sorry, everyone.
And I can, yeah, that's a roundabout way of saying you've just been having a nice time across Africa. But you know what? We'll not ask, otherwise you tell us something else. And there's a bit of noise from traffic behind you, Cheta. Where on earth are you now?
I'm in Lagos, the home of traffic. You know, when you open the definition of traffic in the dictionary, you see Lagos. I'm actually at home, but my place is in an estate, but there's an expressway that is um perhaps that's okay. You know the place anyway, Unzukwe. So I'm in Magodo.
I used to live there as well.
You
So
used to
yes,
live,
I
yes, you used to
fun
live
times.
here, not far from me. So the traffic you are hearing is from Alausa Secretariat. This
Oh,
is, yes, we're recording at the peak of rush hour, and Nigerians love honking their horns. So um I'm sorry, but
oh.
there's nothing I can do about that.
Anyway, so I think what we'll do, this might have to be a short one, just so that we can get as much of what we want to do under maybe 30 minutes or thereabouts, just so that we can leave you, Chata, to carry on with your business. So anyway, it seemed like all the interesting things happened while you were away, Cheta, and
I'm still
talk about.
away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe maybe you should come back just so that we can have some less interesting times in UK politics. In fact, the things that we had wanted to talk about a certain case, which definitely, hopefully, we should come back to. But we've been somehow got into conference season. Everything has been overtaken by events, and here we are talking yet again about the issue of migration and just how it seems that no matter how much you try to keep our heads under the parapet to stay out of public discourse, UK politics seems to find us. So, Cheta, over to you.
Well, I think what I would want to talk about, even though it's now more than a week old, and we talked about it last week, but that was the episode that got trashed, the trash recording, um, is the proposal by Reform Nigel Farage on scrapping the indefinite leave to remain, and then retroactively going to for people who have already settled in the UK, retroactively going to take away their ILR and making them to apply. I think that we can we can basically update it now by talking about the fact that the Labour Party in their conference, and did you attend the conference?
No, no,
The
no. I didn't attend this year. No.
Okay. Anyway, the Labour Party, so I would ask you what are you people doing, has suggested again raising it to 10 years. And I want to bookmark by that by reminding that there was a parliamentary hearing, public hearing, just before I left the UK, where it was mentioned, where it was talked about, and not one person was in support of the idea. So I'm just wondering what your party is doing. So over to you, Ndukwe. Explain to us what's your party doing.
Teta, I think this will be the first time that you and I will be on the same page of asking questions and finding no answers, and that is because, like you, I'm also wondering what's going on. Not so much because, as Kestama said in his conference speech, that it's sensible for any country to want to look at the subject of migration and how it's contained. But the moment has let me scratching my head is the fact that, because anyone who has followed UK politics will know that the media is adept, if anything, at sleight of hand. Why Shabana Mahmoud, who's the Home Secretary, went on to talk about the 10-year ILR route while Farage was talking about the 7-year ILR route, which somehow has managed, in some weird way, managed to make reform look like they are the
Look more
moderates. Because,
moderate.
yeah, because you have Kemi Badenoch, who's conservative, talking about 15 years. And on the other hand, you have Labour talking about 10 years, and then in slides reform in the middle, talking about 7 years. However, when you look at the difference between the proposal by Labour and proposal by Reform, while Labour is saying, while Shabada Mahmoud is saying, you have to wait for 10 years to get your ILR, which interestingly some people are anyway at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think
mm,
it would be nice to explain that there are two main routes. There's the
yes,
5-year route, and then there's the 10-year route, and then there's also the 3-year route for people who are on global talent visas in the exceptional
exceptional,
category.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. So there's that. But whilst that is going on, and Labour has said, well, okay, we're going to consolidate everything into this 10-year route. Um, what is saying is, yeah, it's 7 years in the first instance, then you reapply. Then you reapply. So when you look at it, the devil is always in the detail, or sometimes lack of it when it comes to Farage. But when you look at what Farage is saying, it's that there is never going to be a time when you will be settled enough to have that indefinite leave to remain, because you are never going to belong, which is why every 7 years he wants you to reapply and keep reapplying, just so that he can remind you that you don't belong here. Labour, on the other hand, is saying, well, we're going to move, rather than, maybe the 3 years will still be there, I don't know, but rather than 5 years, which is like the average time for people, we're going to move everything into that 10-year period. However, as with everything we've seen, or as with most things we've seen in this government, the problem is always with the communication. And another thing that left me scratching my head was, um, Shabana Mahmood talked about this on a Monday when she gave her conference speech. Then comes Keir Starmer on what I thought was a brilliant conference speech on Tuesday, but then calls out Farage's policies for what they are, racist. And it's quite interesting that he went that way, because somebody, I mean, I was speaking to someone today and they said, well, you know what? It's interesting that Starmer has rightly called out this racism that underlines Farage's policies. However, his Home Secretary has just said, well, we're going to borrow a bit of that and give you guys a longer term to stay, and then with the volunteering. So it's just a whole. It's a policy
it's a whole
salad.
mess. So
Well,
I just
as I said, policy salad.
yeah. Okay, so I disagree with you slightly when you say it's just a problem with communication. I agree to an extent that yes, there's definitely a communication problem, but I think that the bigger problem really is the fact that Labour keeps playing in reforms tough. This is kind of like Liverpool going to Galatasaray and expecting to play a particular kind of game and win the match. That was never going to happen. Home advantage still counts for something. And the immigration debate is reforms turf. The Labour should be playing in other places, for example, the economy. The real problem, and not just in the UK, but in Europe generally, in the United States, and here in Africa, is cost of living. And one similarity that I find with all the demagogues in the different parts of the world that I have been in over the last 6 months is there's a cost of living crisis in all the countries I have been in the last with over the last 6 month period, and the demagogue or the demagogic people tend to play up issues. So let's take Nigeria as an example. The government here keeps playing the ethnic thing, setting the Yorubas and the Igbos against each other. In the UK, it's clearly immigration that reform is playing with, and Labour is playing that game. It's a losing hand, and I don't understand why Keir Starmer and Shamima Mahmood can't see that. Um, Now, from my point of view, scrapping the indefinite leave to remain um, is not going to change anything. And even Farage knows that. He also knows that there will be legal challenges to it. He knows that there will be an economic fallout. And he knows that there's very likely, there'll very be likely claims for compensation because people have paid a shared load of money to get the
Mm,
ILR. That kind of thing will cost the British economy a lot of money. And I'm certain that he knows this. But from where I'm standing, it's a very simple thing. Farage knows that that what keeps him up in the polls is being covered in the news. So he does these things, he says these things routinely because you have the media that the moment Farage just lifts his leg, all of them put him in the front on the front page. And that's helping in his ratings. Very, very
mm,
it's helping his ratings very, very strongly. So a part of the problem, and I have said this before, is the media. They keep giving him what I would call undeserved coverage. And I read somewhere just over 2 weeks ago that the BBC was sort of queried by I think was it Ofcom? I don't remember, but the BBC was sort of queried for because of the sheer amount of airtime that they give Farage. So that's a significant part of the problem from my point of view. It's a
mm.
framing problem. There are real issues, real bread and butter issues that should be discussed, but people spend so much time on this issue that in reality is a non-issue. I think that for the first time, Stammer actually got it almost right when he gave that speech at the Labour conference and framed it properly and witnessed the reaction of the right-wing media. Um,
I mean,
uh,
they've gone into meltdown.
yes, they've gone into
I
meltdown,
was, I was listening. I was listening to. Sorry, I was listening to Nick Farage this morning, and you could just tell how upset this guy was that someone is finally saying, Nigel Farage, your comments are racist. Your policy is based on racism, and he couldn't contain himself. And if you even notice, I'm sorry for butchering, but even Farage himself, in his response, he wasn't his usual ebullient. Again, maybe he's putting up a show. I don't know, but he shows what happens when you stand up to bullies. He's wilting under the sheer
under the pressure.
force of the fact that he is, and I'll call it as it is. He is a bleeding racist.
Well, so for me, I again still keeping on that theme of the media and really poor coverage. The the Lib Dems, Davy has actually been making a lot of sense for close to a year now. Yet nobody. It's almost as if because of that incident where during campaigning he did some bungee jumping or flew in on the of they've deliberately decided to typecast him on that in that sense when he's actually been speaking very
No, but
very seriously. If you want to have
but the
if you want to
argument,
okay, go on.
the argument for that can be that unfortunately, Ed Davey is being forced to have to do all those stunts because otherwise the media will ignore him. So
No,
it's
so that was
sad that
during campaign. That was during campaign.
yeah.
He did
No, but
all
even
of
during
those
his
stunts
party
during campaign.
conference, even during his party conference, he went in with a marching band
That's
again,
this
and that was
party conference now.
yes. He had to
Okay, I
pull
didn't.
another stunt to get to get noticed, and it's sad. A party with what 75 or how many MPs has to resort to stunts, whereas
Whereas
as you said, oh,
the one with six MPs now is
five,
getting all the. Okay, yeah, okay.
oh,
Slow left, and then somebody has decamped
yeah,
into. Yeah, so it's
yes,
five
five, yeah.
MPs. The one with five MPs is getting all this free coverage. So again, it brings up the media is a significant part of the problem,
Mm.
and
It is.
so, and in any event, I would one thing that I am quite certain about in all of this is that um, the um, a lot of it will remain noise, just very harmful noise. I think it must be said, um, but noise nevertheless. There's in from my point of view, there's no way that retroactive thing will happen simply because it's going to really hurt the UK and they know it. Um, I also think that smarter people will come to the fore over time. There's maybe I'm being naive. Um, there's a rightward push in the UK that's definite. That one
Mm.
is definite, and it basically works with as we've said in previous episodes, because people are going through a hard time of it. The economy is not doing well, and historically, it always happens that when the economy isn't doing very well, you will find people will be more willing to listen to um to to mad people, for want of a better word. But at the end of the day, I think that a key thing that is going to come out over time as people begin to cut through the noise is the fact that even the figures that Farage claims that he would be saving and all of that, where it was withdrawn by the very think tank that published it.
Yeah,
I think that's very important. The CPS it's a
yeah.
very very important part of the conversation. It's also very very important from my point of view. The timing. I do not think that reform can sustain. So they peaked too early. That's my point of view.
Mm.
They peaked too early. So I don't think they can sustain this momentum for up until 2029. So the key risk from where I'm standing is if Stammer loses his nerve and and for example calls a general election too early. That's the
Oh,
key
no, I
risk.
think I
If he
think if
holds his
there's
nerve,
anything,
if he
mm.
holds his nerve and by the way, I don't think he's running the Labour Party too well. I think he's
Mm.
making some of the same mistakes that Boris Johnson made and alienating some of the best people that your party has. But that's another story entirely. Bottom line is, I think reform has peaked too early, and they will lose steam at some point in 2027. That's my view.
Oh, definitely, and I think to just dial back a bit, when I said the problem with this whole policy from Labour was communications, what I meant is the way they've not put out their argument. So they've just come out and said, okay, well, we're going to do this 10 years. A better way of saying that would have been one, this is what we're looking at, this is why we're doing it, this is who it's going to affect, this is when it's going to start. So all that has so when people are running around scared, they've on one hand they are sending the signals that look, we're not going to do anything retroactively. So that means even if there's a 10-year wait for ILR, it's going forward, not going backwards like reform. But because there's that thing of just we're just going to throw is like a policy salad, throw everything inside the bowl, whatever comes up, that's what you have. Then people are like, what on earth is going on? And that is where that problem is. But I also I agree with you that reform picked too early because Farage again cannot help himself. He's a showman, and all he's doing is, I'm just going to strike, while the as they
The
say,
iron
strike
is
while the iron
hot.
is hot. However, and then he hitched his bandwagon onto Donald Trump, who one is not so liked in the UK, except if you are Tommy Robinson and his fans. But also, you notice that whenever people ask him questions, like how are you going to pay for this? What are the He starts getting touchy. He starts getting upset and doesn't want to talk about it. And that is and if you notice in the past 1 week, again, I know you've been out and you've been more engaged with African policy. But if in the past 1 week, the media has really started asking more questions, and this has just opened him up for everyone to see that this man is empty. However, the problem still remains that Starmer's turnaround time, even when he gets to say the right thing, he waits for a long time. So calling out the racist undertone of Farage's policy was definitely the right thing to do, but it was so, he waited what till after conference. Maybe he wanted to give himself that platform of conference to say this is what it is. However, people in this sadly soundbite era, news is like fast food. People
I
can't
think
wait until.
I think you've used precisely the right language here. It's
Mm,
soundbite era, and that's part of the problem with not just Labour but even the Tories. Again, I would go back and say the only person who is not operating a soundbite policy making mechanism is Ed Davey, but um, Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch, of course, Nigel Farage is the king of sound bites. It's they are basically walking, reading from polls. They are reacting to polls and all of that
mm,
stuff, and that's no way to do policy.
yeah.
Policy is supposed to be something that is considered, seriously considered, patience. So in that respect, Stammer probably had it right in waiting to issue to finally speak at the right time. You don't if you are spending all the time responding, you'll find that you don't have time to do any other thing. So I think that he's done well in that timing. However, I'm still very strongly of the opinion that he spent too much time playing in reform stuff. There
Mm.
are a lot of other things, a lot of strengths that the Labour Party has at the moment, um, that he could actually play more of.
Look, and that's true because my concern has always been the lack of coherent storytelling. There's a lot that um, the Labour Party has delivered since it got elected. When you look at free school meals, for instance, you look at Great British Energy, you look at um, hiking the national minimum wage, the workers' rights, and banning of fire and rehire. Now, these are things that matter to a lot of people. How there's going to be the housing or the renters reform, but by always being drawn away
From talking about
sideways
those.
from talking about, because really, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, right now we're talking about local government reorganization, the process of giving more power to regions. These are the things that Labour should focus on because these are the things that directly affect people's lives. There should be a If you were to ask me, I'll say, look, get an ad agency, treat your administration like an ad campaign. Get your messaging right, because if you're looking for people uh in comms or from the media to talk, or if you're looking for people to talk to the media to sell your narrative, you're never going to get it. The media is largely right wing. What you need to do is treat the administration as though it were an ad campaign, and push out strategic comms about what you're doing. And for the love of God, I don't know if it's kids that are handling either the Twitter account or whatever, but some things that go out, just don't. Forget reform, forget Farage, speak directly to the people, because there are people who still believe in the Labour government, who believe in the moral cause, not this rubbish that Farage is doing, but by being sidelined at every single time, making policy after policy that responds to Farage's racist antics, you are you're legitimizing him. Whereas what you should be doing is drawing that line in the sand to say this is the kind of community we want. Farage does not represent that. The Labour Party represents that.
Well, for once, I can't find
How's it going? I'm looking forward to working together.
I can't pierce your labor defense. So I'll just keep quiet and say, well done, bravo.
Yeah. But the other thing I'll also say, because in the past few days we've been having these conversations with people, and I know you probably get tired of me saying this, but we must engage a lot more with our members of parliament. It upsets me
Of course,
when
we no,
people
I
walk.
don't get tired. It's, I mean, I would repeat what I said the last time we had a successful recording, which is one mistake that many people in our class of Africans made was and using Nigeria as a great example. In 1999, when Nigeria was moving from military rule to civilian rule, so many people in the middle class concluded, wrongly as it has turned out, and in short, not just wrongly but disastrously as it has turned out, that politics was for bad guys. So they
Mm,
refused to engage. Now it is essentially the worst of us that govern the country. So what we need to do in the new countries, as it were, is to be engaged. You can't
yep,
afford to make that mistake. And one thing, it comes to the heart of democracy. Democracy can only be successful when you have an engaged population. What we have in countries like Nigeria is not democracy. It's just regular
it's cosplay.
election. It's cosplay. We just come once every 4 years and line up and count the votes and then go. But all the things that really make it a democracy in between, we don't do that. Witness, and this is at the risk of bringing Nigerian politics into what is supposed to be a podcast about UK politics for African immigrants. But witness what is happening right now with the inner bit, as in the feedback loop is completely broken here. I think I should just stop there so that I don't distract. But
Yeah.
that's the lesson that we should learn.
Yes, and that's a campaign I've been on for much of last week, saying to people, yes, I know you're upset, I know you're scared. However, people need to understand that the more you engage with your members of parliament about proposed issues, the more they can take informed decisions shaped
Decisions.
by their correspondence with their constituents. That is what is at the heart of the matter here. And I think something has happened to Cheta's record. I think he stopped recording. But okay, yeah. But let's I think we'll wrap up here, because best hope is that your recording is still coming in, because we just had a message from, oh no, he's off now. But look, thank you, Cheta. I know you're experiencing choppy network connection where you are, but you went just in time, folks. Please let us engage. Um, the proposals are still. I have not even I've not even gone out for consultation yet, so there's still time for consultations. But if we keep quiet, then it's us saying, you know what, we agree with you. Carry on. So until next time, this has been the Black Paper with Ndukwe Noha Chetan Wanze. We'll see you at the next one.